So first of all, Irina, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Hello, and I'm very grateful to be here, to be seeing your shiny, bright, beautiful face.
I think it's maybe cool for listeners to know that you and I met many years ago, and I believe it was in Munich. Am I right? Was it Munich or was it Heidelberg or
Heidelberg, yeah.
was
It
Heidelberg?
was Heidelberg, yeah. Even though Munich more beautiful, but Heidelberg.
I don't know. Heidelberg is pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
So our relationship goes back, and you inspired me. The very first, I remember the moment I met you.
You
Actually,
do?
I do.
Well, I
I
definitely
do.
remember because you were such a fantastic trainer and I was blown away. But I didn't know you remembered, which is great. Thank you.
I I do remember. You know why I remember? Because there were moments, and maybe this will be apparent in our conversation today. But there were moments where I saw something special in you, like you were especially awake to something. Some of the things you said to me, I thought, oh, she knows some things. Like, oh, okay, like I saw glimpses of your wisdom every time I interacted with you. So I'm excited all these years later because that must have been about 2019, I'm
It was
guessing.
a while ago. It was a while ago. it was like very first beginning of coaching for me. And you were the first one. Actually, you were the first one.
So it's fundamentals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. Well, so I would love to give you an opportunity to tell listeners whatever you want them to know about you before we dive into emotional mastery, which is what we're talking about today.
So, okay, what do I want a listener to know about me? Very basic. Probably I'll start with the fact that I'm from Republic of Georgia and residing in Singapore right now in 2024. This is my sixth move, and this was probably the easiest move compared to other countries. Today, I am emotional mastery trainer and a coach, mindset coach, manifestation coach, though I started as a career coach. My biggest teachers in emotional mastery are my boys, 4 years and 6 years, Gabriel and Sandro, which I think is, yeah, kids are the biggest teachers I feel for many parents. And yeah, in the background, I have 14 years of marketing, strategic marketing background. So quite some corporate experience until I said it's enough. I really need to do something much more meaningful that speaks to my heart, and that was coaching and training, and I love what I do. I guess that's and
Yes.
important. I guess deep inside, I'm a musician.
Yes, I know that music is so important in Georgia. I
Oh,
just I just went to Tibet, and in the group that I was hiking in Tibet with was somebody from Georgia, and we talked so much about
yeah.
music. And I've actually been to Georgia. I think you know
I
that.
remember.
I've been to the Caucasus Mountains, and
Yes, I
yeah,
do.
love Khachapuri. Anyway, that's a different topic that we won't go into now because we have such a brilliant, subject to work with today. And I told you earlier, I'm passionate about it. I think that in general, we're not trained, you know, the, the, the education system doesn't really cover emotional intelligence, although that's happening now. But I think we all could use more information, more knowledge, more skills and mastery with emotions. So let's dive in to first of all the definition of emotional mastery because we can't assume that people know what we're talking about.
Yes. Yes, indeed. And there is no one specific definition that is right or wrong, but my personal definition of emotional mastery is the ability to navigate life in such a way that you are very confident no matter what reality hits you at any moment, you are okay because you know how to handle your emotions. So it's handling and mastering your emotions no matter what. And because of this, being peaceful, because you have that skill set that you can use at any time. So that's the
Yeah.
summary of what emotional mastery is for me.
Yeah, I want to underline confidence because I think this is also at the heart of a lot of self confidence and self esteem issues. When you feel afraid of emotions, or you're unable to process them, I think one of the ways it impacts you is lack of confidence and lower self esteem.
Uh,
And also, of course, you avoid people and situations, so it starts making your life smaller.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. The responses that we hold to different emotional states or different situations have been handed to us, since we're little kids. And these are habit loops that operate, and we just simply never explored what are the better ways to respond to this or that situation. And I yet need to meet somebody who has zero doubt about themselves or zero fears, but
Yeah.
just knowing that even when these arise, when this self-doubt, fear arise, it's okay. I know how to handle it. I think it's that mindset of I know how to handle it. And a trust, of course, a trust that comes with that confidence that you mean.
Yeah, so let's talk about handling it because I mean that's what's really interesting for listeners. We're not trained in this. It's not something that you find easily in terms of knowledge unless you buy a book or you sign up for a course. It's something missing in our system. And I mean, I love that we get to have this conversation because I think that it is so incredibly useful for people to know how simple it can be. Doesn't mean that it's easy,
Yes.
but I think it can be quite simple, and that is an important distinction. So let's go for explaining how do you handle emotions better? How do you gain emotional mastery?
So, as you said, it can be simple, but to master it is another, it's another element and another skill set. And honestly, it's a daily training. It's a daily
Yeah,
training. It's There are days where I feel, wow, how amazingly I navigated this or that. Does it mean that tomorrow is going to be exact same level of navigating it? Not necessarily. So that's why daily I'm reminded by life that it's a daily training, even for
yeah,
someone who pays attention at least a few hours. I pay attention daily to my emotions and I work with
yeah,
them daily. And yet, I feel it's a lifelong learning to master fully. Um, and it's like waves. You never know what size wave hits when. And is that
yeah.
ability to no matter will you float with it or will it just, take you in that swirl of rotation? When you get up, what do you do? Do you smile, brush it off, and continue? So I guess the question is, um, and one of the first steps towards the mastery is acceptance, is accepting the emotion. And why I'm telling this is from my first learning, and that happened about 9 years ago when I had an emotional breakdown, which led me to learn so much about emotions, where I would go out of nowhere into panic attacks. And for those people maybe who don't necessarily know what it means that the anxiety, the fear blew up so big that emotions literally exceed the physical body and they feel all over the place and you feel like the worst thing will happen any second now. So that was the feeling that I would experience when I had that. Now what stopped that feeling and what stopped those things to happen was realization and learning the skill that the first thing to stop that huge energy growing and growing and growing is to accept that, look it in the eye and say, it's okay. I'm experiencing a tremendous fear right now, for example.
Yeah.
So the acceptance allows the feel. So when we don't accept, right, we build this wall, uh, or yeah, a wall, a door that just you want to keep it away. I don't want to experience this feeling, sadness, whatever it is. But the more you push it away, the bigger it becomes. And that is something is not instinctively known to us. We feel we just, you know, we avoid, but no, actually. The more you immediately look it in the eye and say, right now I feel sadness, I feel grief, I feel fear, I feel anxiety. And to
Mm.
let those guard down and open the door to that emotions, to feel it is the first thing. Because actually, with me, it immediately subsides. Immediately, the
Yeah.
moment you acknowledge, oh, this is how I feel, let me just relax my body and feel it, even if it's so uncomfortable. And that is what stopped my panic attacks from happening. The last one was 9 years ago. I'm very grateful because it was super discomforting, yet very grateful for that big lesson that appeared in my life. Uh, because otherwise, I don't think I would have been on the journey of emotional mastery and learning so much about emotions. But for the listener, the first step is to relax physically the body and actually look that emotion in the eye, almost metaphorically, and say, I see you and it's okay. And this is what I feel and it's okay. And let's feel it, let's just be with it. And one more thing I want to add here, I think problem arises when we identify ourselves with it, when we feel I am grief, I am this panic attack, I am that fear, but actually it's a passenger. I feel we should view emotions as a wave, literally. If you're standing in an ocean, right, any wave can be there, and you just don't identify with any of that. It's just an experience. And when you see it, oh, this one I'm experiencing now, it's not me, though. It's not me. This is very crucial, I believe. People think it's
Mm.
them. Thoughts are them, emotions are them, but no, it's not.
Yeah, I think the wave is one of the best metaphors for a few reasons. I think one, that a wave subsides, and anxiety and panic attacks come from avoiding and avoiding until you literally
Yeah,
cannot avoid any longer, and it's almost like a tsunami or a tidal wave,
yeah,
right? It's built up. And I love what you said about it's a daily practice. Just like in coaching, we talk about mental fitness, and you go to the gym for physical fitness. This is emotional fitness, and it's the choice in every moment that you feel a wave coming on, to let it pass through you. And something that was a game changer for me is when I was reading about conscious leadership, the fact that this rush of chemicals in your body that is the emotion only lasts 60 to 90 seconds. That was a game changer for me. I thought everyone can handle, I mean, as challenging as that emotion might
yeah,
be, everyone can handle 60 to 90 seconds. And it's like that wave that comes in, and it sits for just a second, and you got to be with it. And
yeah,
then it goes back out. And just like Mother Nature has that rhythm, so the emotion comes and goes. Or the comparison of the weather, it rains and then the sun comes out. And I think that the fear that it will destroy us, or I'll feel something and I won't be able to get out of it,
yeah,
or it will awaken a trauma that I can't handle. There's all these fears that keep us from opening that door, like you said.
exactly.
And when you just start choosing it and practicing it, you realize that most of those fears are unfounded.
Yeah, it's much bigger in our mind's eye. It's much worse in our mind's eye because we feel it's unknown. What if there's huge monster behind it? But the truth is, it's never as bad as it seems if you really allow it to be. And it can be, of course, that it's a bit longer for some people. Actually, it can be even much faster for people who learned to relax and allow it to pass through. It can be really very fast. And sometimes, if intensity is very big, it can be a bit longer. But still, the fact that it passes through in few minutes, if you really are with it, is such a
Mm.
relief, I feel. But it takes courage. I think
It does take
mastering
courage.
emotions and feeling emotions takes courage. So you need to roll
Yes.
up the sleeves and sit with it, but it's okay. It's really
Yes, yes. You know, the metaphor that I love, going back to your image of opening the door to it, is often in my courses, I talk about how we imagine a lion
yeah,
or a tiger,
yeah,
and you open the door, and very often it's the kitty cat. It's not
yeah,
your mind doesn't always
yeah,
tell you the truth
yeah.
about things.
It's yeah,
And so I think that you're so right, courage. And then once you take that step, very often you're going to be happily
yeah,
surprised that it wasn't that bad.
yeah, yeah. It's a shadow of that little kitten that looks like a huge tiger or a monster that we see that shadow, but It's never that bad, actually. And I want to add a tiny element that was really a something that opened up my perspective even further after watching Inside Out movie.
Oh, yes. And the second one was
Second one
excellent.
was fantastic. I mean, I love both, but when I watched the second one, I had that feeling that, you can love all the emotions. I know joy is the easiest to take, to feel because it's just so natural, it's so expansive. But if you learn to love, especially those faces that are put there as all aspects of your emotional family that we all hold, absolutely, then it's so much easier. You're like, okay, sadness, I see you, I hear you, let's be with you, anxiety, fear, whoever, you can learn to love them. And that made a difference on me when I invited that feeling of, oh, why should I only be always in joy? I know it feels nice, but I can love them equally, all those emotions. And that really elevated my experience, I must admit.
You mentioned Inside Out. I think both of those films have, I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that we have a lack of knowledge and awareness. And I think Pixar did something brilliant for the world with those movies. I remember my daughter, when she came out of, she's had problems with panic attacks and anxiety. And when she came out of the second Inside Out, she said, I cried off and on through the entire movie because it was so well done. And she said, that is what it feels like. That is, they captured it so
Ex-
perfectly. And I think that message of you're not alone, this happens to a lot of people. Here are some ways to deal with it. It's brilliant. In the entertainment industry, when I see they're looking to serve the greater good, it fills my heart.
And what I love about it is the complexity of human being, where we feel we only have that one identity. It's shown in that movie that we have so many aspects, let alone just emotions that have their own character, their own personas, right? And all those unseen and seen, everything about us. And they, in a very simple way, they put it there. So I would recommend anybody who hasn't watched it to absolutely watch it if you're on emotional mastery course.
And take your children. I mean, I think, being exposed to that film at a young age can help so much with
Exactly.
developing emotional
Exactly,
intelligence.
exactly. I think every human being should be aware of how our emotions work and what happens when we don't feel sadness in the first series, or what happens when we don't acknowledge, how actually anxiety operates. Anxiety was really like eye-opening to me. Um,
Yeah.
there is a scene in that movie where a whole army of, you know this, I don't know, cartoon characters are painting worst case scenarios driven by anxiety, and that was my head for very long. I feel I lived 30 years of my life in worst case scenario movies, generating what could go wrong so I would prevent them, but actually you are creating them when you do that. That's
Yeah.
why I love that character of anxiety, which shows how I think majority of humans operate with the anxiety of worst case scenarios. And we
Yeah.
should just
Yeah.
stop those pictures in our head and say, show me the best case scenario now, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, there we have a negativity bias. And in order to train the mind to look at best case scenarios, that is a mental
Yes,
gymnasium. I mean, you have to
exactly.
consciously choose to send your brain in a different direction because we're programmed
Exactly.
uh, to look at the worst case scenario for
And
survival.
we are creating that, right? I mean, the moment you train your mind to see worst case scenarios, according to a law of, you call it attraction, manifesting, whatever you call it, you are creating then that reality of worst case. And this is how I suddenly saw how I created a lot of parts, good and bad parts, in my reality previously, when I was just running
Yeah.
worst case scenarios in my head, thinking that I'm
Yeah.
preventing them, being good about
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it will not happen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought it so many times, and then it would.
Yeah, it's so funny because I mean we have to bring humor to this because it really is. It's so human, and it's funny. I love that quote from Mark Twain. I share it in my courses all the time. My life was full of tragedies, or I don't know how many tragedies, and most of which never happened because they were all self-created. And whenever I say that quote, people always move their head like,
Yeah.
yep, yep, they can identify. My mom this morning, my mom was here for a month visiting me, and she was supposed to fly out yesterday, and her flight was canceled. So she started writing to me, all the drama, this happened, and now I'm sure this is going to happen. And it's so funny because, I mean, I've traveled nonstop for like the last 30 years. So this morning she writes to me and she says, well, now they can't find a particular passenger, and I bet they're going to deplane. They're going to have us all get off. And I sent to her a little what do you call it, icon of popcorn, and I said, "Ooh, you're turning this into a very dramatic, movie. I love how you're projecting, exciting stuff ahead." And I sent I was trying to be humorous, and I said, "You have to remember, Mom, I've seen a lot of these movies. I know how most of them end. They're not going to deplane you. I can tell you that is not going to happen." But it was just really funny how her mind just was going to all these bad things that were going to happen.
Yeah, and maybe here's when we can share the second technique of emotional mastery
Yes,
is
yes,
when we open the door to one thought which goes bad, negative scenario, we are creating more and more and more energy into what can go even worse, even worse. So if you sit and soak in that vibration of what can go wrong, the more of it will show up. It's like a magnet. Like this is how I see it a little
yeah,
bit. Like a magnet that will attract similar thoughts and it will expand,
yeah,
expand, expand. And in a nutshell, this is what then explodes the anxiety going to really big mode because you
yeah,
never stopped it from saying consciously, okay, thank you, let's turn the channel to a better channel. Like, what is a better thought?
absolutely.
And then
Yeah.
when you
It does take conscious effort because it is unnatural for most
absolutely.
people.
It's a
Yeah,
conscious effort to pause yourself and say, what is a better thought? What could be a better scenario? And then when a better thought comes, what could be even better? And that same way as the negative will spiral and magnetize the better thoughts or even better thoughts and better thoughts until the joy comes in
yeah.
and you're like, oh, how nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Self self-fulfilling prophecy. I started reading an author about 22, 23 years ago, and his kind of claim to fame is he always said, "Thoughts become things, choose the good ones." He always said, all of his emails would say, "Thoughts become things, choose the good
exactly.
ones." And it became a kind of mantra for me. Thoughts become things, choose the good ones.
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel we magnetize our energy, our being by feeling thoughts, entertaining thoughts, and then feeling the emotions. And being also, I recently renamed myself as a manifestation coach because I realized helping people with, attracting the right careers and everything. I never wanted to say manifesting because not many people maybe know exactly what it means. But at some point, I said, let's just call it what it is. Creating your
Yeah,
reality and your thoughts and your emotions, especially emotions, is what creates your reality. It's what attracts, right? Whatever is in your field, you attract that, like attracts like, as they say. So,
yeah. So before we go here, because this is another exciting topic we're both passionate about, I have a couple more
absolutely.
questions about the I mean, this is an aspect of emotional mastery, but I have a couple of friends right now, Irina, who are going through some different degrees of sort of traumatic experiences. And if we go back to the metaphor of the wave,
Mm,
it feels like a wave, and then they're trying to recover from that big wave and another wave.
mm,
Like, in fact, it reminds me, I had an experience of when I was about 11 at Santa Cruz Beach in California. I'm a I was a competitive swimmer when I was younger, very confident in the water. I was walking out, and the waves are really big in the Pacific, in that part of the world. And I remember that a big wave was mounting. I saw it coming, and I thought, oh my God. And my sister, I had one sister who was on the other side of the wave who said, swim as fast as you can to swim through the
yeah.
wave. I tried to swim through the wave. I didn't make it. And it crashed on me. And it was like the washing machine effect. And in fact, it was so violent that when I stood up, I could barely see with salt water in my eyes, and I was bleeding because I had been kind of thrown against the sand and some rocks and stuff like that. And I'll never forget this. This was so horrible, but this is a metaphor for what some of my friends are feeling right now. So I want to go here before we go to
Absolutely.
manifesting. Um, I, I was walking back, and my other sister was on the beach. So I had one sister on the other side of the wave, and I had one sister who was on the beach. And that sister went, "Oh my God, look out. Rule number one, never turn your back to the
Yeah.
ocean." So another enormous wave engulfed me, and I had to be rescued by a
Wow.
lifeguard because I hadn't recovered. I
First
hadn't,
one, the first
and
one.
exactly. So I know that some of my friends are feeling a bit like this, like they cannot recover from one wave of emotion that is absolutely gut wrenching before the next one
Wow.
comes. And so I know that, some of these friends, of course, I'm like, okay, well, let's visualize, what you want. They can't do that because they're in trauma right now, trying to manage these extremely overpowering
Yeah.
emotions. So can we talk about how to deal with really
Such a good
strong
question.
waves?
Yeah. So I feel when such a big wave happens of emotion, of something that is seen very dramatic and traumatic, um, there is this resistance to accept that reality. And that in acceptance, like, why did that happen? How did that happen? These questions, these non acceptance of this reality creates also a big backlog that you cannot open the door and feel it on the first place.
Mm,
Because if you would
yeah.
remove this element, right, this resistance, unfair, I don't want to accept that part. If you would suddenly like remove it and then you would just open the door, okay, there's this huge tsunami, but let me feel it. It would be much easier, but I understand that the mind feels sometimes that it shouldn't have happened. How did it happen? Like, and it's
Or how did it happen like
like,
that?
yeah,
Like how did
exactly,
like,
like it could have been that way or that. So this mind
yeah, yeah,
chatter of an
yeah.
unfairness and this, so pretty much mind does not allow emotions to run. So if we look at the river, right, it's as if the big stone fell into the river, like, or something bigger that just doesn't allow river to float, and it's just stagnated and it's becoming a bit swampy in some area. But that resistance to why did it happen, how did it happen, etc., and that narrative of the situation creates the biggest um, drama on its own.
Okay, this is really good. This I think this is so key. So the mind gets in the way of being able to fully feel what you need to feel in order for you to go back into a state of flow.
Which is
Um,
the
so
step,
I'm
right?
yeah,
Acceptance. Which means
acceptance.
you're not
So
accepting that. You're
yeah,
not accepting that fact. You feel it's unfair, so you don't even allow the emotions to fully feel. Because if you really feel and say, okay, let me feel it, then it means you at least
yeah.
accepted it, that, oh, it's like that. And if you did, it's already much easier. And from there you can
So
start to manifest different things, but first the first part needs to happen.
is that yeah? So I kind of associate acceptance with surrender, with trust. It's like in order to accept, I think that there is part of it is knowing it. If I accept, if I fully accept that this is happening, um, there's something on the other side of this, or I trust that life is, the universe has my back, or that
Yeah.
life will look after me. I feel like there's something with acceptance, surrender, and trust. Can you say something about your experience with that?
I feel this is where spiritual awakening plays a big role, and I will tell you what I mean. Sometimes when something dramatic happens, no matter how big, um, if we look at it through the lens of spirituality, a spirit experiencing this reality and growing constantly, and we look at it, which means you leave behind the mental aspect of how mentally we would interpret, but you purely look from a soul or spiritual element, you would ask, the first thing you would do is ask, what is this teaching me spiritually? what skill sets, what is the lesson, what is the divine lesson of this, right? What does it look, how does it look from higher view of spirituality, you know? So whatever the example is, even if we take war, correct, which is very dramatic, especially if you live there and especially if you experience, um, you know, people passing, etc. What is the big lesson? I know it can be very painful from an element of us, human element of us, to ask this, but for a spirit version of us, right? If we believe an infinity of a spirit and if we see that we're constantly expanding, what is this lesson bringing me? And there is always an expansion element on a spiritual level. And I feel if we turn it around to, and I know how difficult it is, so I'm not underestimating even by a tiny millimeter the difficulty of saying, wow, it's super painful, but I know it's a divine lesson. And in the long run of life, I know that at some point I can look at it and say, thank you for expanding me. So getting there, I feel that for spiritually a little bit more like awakened person, it's easier to twist it around and say, thank you for this lesson. So now I open the door. So there's no resistance of why this happened. You trust that it should have happened, right? And spiritually it should have happened. So let me now just feel those emotions and let me turn it to a great gratitude one way or another for this tough, tough, tough lesson.
Okay, I have to play the devil's advocate for a moment.
Yes.
So let's go back to the wave that crashed on
Yeah.
me. Yeah, that sister that was pointing that wave out, who was sitting on the beach, 8 years later died in a car accident. When she was 19 and I was 18. The two of us were just a little over a year apart. We were like twins.
Oh.
Metaphorically, that was the biggest tsunami of my life. And when you talk about the meta view or the spiritual intelligence that will allow you to look for the lesson, at 18, I did not have that level of spiritual intelligence developed. And I think there are a lot of human beings out there. These are all interconnected: physical fitness, mental fitness, emotional fitness, and spiritual fitness. But if you need spiritual fitness to master emotions, we might have a catch 22 here. Because my spiritual fitness arena came from those huge waves. My awakening came. My spiritual fitness, it's like the chicken and the egg. My spiritual fitness came from being knocked
Yeah.
down. What I tell people is that I woke up from a nightmare. You don't wake up from a
Yeah.
dream in life, you
Yeah.
wake up from a nightmare. And that's what gave me perspective and allowed me to
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
what what is the learning here in something so unbearably painful.
Yeah. I know. I know. I know. And you know, in those moments, of course, when someone is so young, talking of spiritual higher dimensions is not the right way to go. I think
I didn't have it. I mean, at
no,
18, all I
I
could
don't think.
do.
I mean, majority don't have that. I mean, we have that due to tough times. My spiritual awakening came due to tough hits in life. But that's what I mean. That at some point you can, no matter how tough, look at it and find gratitude in them still. Because if not that, you wouldn't have awoken to a higher reality of our existence.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying that it takes away all the scars, but it definitely makes it much lighter, realizing a bit bigger picture of our reality. Now, if we're talking
okay,
about 18-year-old, though, if I may just
yeah,
say, I
yeah,
think at that in that situation, a person just needs a lot of love, a lot of compassion, and a lot of listening and sitting with them with those feelings, even if you're not ready
yeah.
to open the door to them.
Right. I think the challenge there is that most of the time the love comes comes from your family, and when your family is just as devastated as you are, nobody is resourceful in that moment in
Yeah,
time to give anybody love.
yeah,
But I like that we're going here, even though it's probably very sad and hard for listeners to hear, because I think what's useful for listeners is that we deal with leaders and clients and people who have all different levels of spiritual and emotional intelligence. And when you're dealing with someone, like if I'm coaching you, no problem. I can bring in spiritual intelligence and it will help us understand things in a way that will work for you. But when I'm working with someone who's been taught their whole life stiff upper lip and emotions are weakness, or and that's probably more comparable, not to how I was certainly at 18. My family was not that dysfunctional with emotions, but I certainly hadn't been trained in the healthy expressing or processing of emotions. How do you start with someone like that when you have a client who is like an emotional infant in a way, in terms of compared to mastery?
Well, I feel that we attract people when we are right to them, especially if we set intentions. And as coach, I think many of us do that. So first of all, I feel if that client came on my path, he or she was meant to come to my life. So they are probably ready to explore
Ready?
together with me
Yeah.
what is out there on some level, conscious or subconscious, they are ready. So I think already understanding that they are ready already as a coach gives us some calm to know, no matter even if it's tiny baby step, and they're super
Yeah.
logical, ultra logical.
Yeah.
Somewhere needs to be a baby step, and this is it. So, and they might.
Do you have some tips? Yeah, do you have some tips for baby steps? Like if you want to help someone feel what they're feeling, and their mastery is in not feeling, what would be a baby step to help that leader or that coachee feel what they're trying to avoid feeling?
I think first thing that needs to be done is to look at what are the fears behind feeling, because there's a reason why they don't want to feel.
Yeah.
There's always a reason, and the reason is that many times I feel they're afraid to feel the pain. So
Mm,
there is, of course, fine line between a therapy and a coach, and we don't go in coaching in childhood. But let's say if we
yeah.
remove all these constructs, then we could see when this emotional body was turned off or turned, on a
Mm,
silent mode relatively, and how to bring it back. And very often, what I feel helps is an exercise where we recreate parents in our mind. I
mm,
often give this exercise in my coaching, no matter what topic, even if it's manifestation. I will tell you why. Because I feel recreating perfect parents for us internally gives us the sense of worthiness. We are worthy. And I think as a human beings, I don't think that maybe 0.01% receive that 100% love from perfect love from both parents. But I feel that 99 point something of us somewhere missed some love from mother, from father, or from both. And because of this, on some subconscious level, we feel not fully worthy to have a great life. And then we manifest those things in life which are equivalent to how worthy we feel. That's why I feel also emotions are turned off. Because
mm.
if you felt worthy, if you felt good, you might have as well enjoyed. There's no reason to turn down your emotions and to not feel them. So
Yeah.
I feel that doing that exercise, if a person is open to that, this
Mm,
meditation to create this parents which are loving and kind to you retrains your emotional body to and your inner child to
mm.
revive, to feel again. So once again, I feel it depends with who, and I still go and I challenge them, even if it feels like, oh my God, this is really stiff person, like really
Yeah.
would not move. But let me try this, and who knows, maybe they'll give it a shot.
Well, I love that idea of inner allies, your inner child. I think that that's something a lot of people know about. The kind of ideal inner parents is the first time I've heard it. I think that's also a wonderful visualization and tool for people to try. Another thing that I know I do with people who are just getting started with connecting with emotions is saying, if it was weather, because emotions are connected with, a great metaphor is water, weather. So we can say, what's the weather like today? Little teeny things that they can handle. Yeah,
Absolutely, and absolutely, and sometimes I feel that if we ask which part of you can feel, like which part of you has that skill, because
mm,
there are many aspects of us, so to say, and sometimes they might be able to say, I have a little bit of this and in there, and suddenly you get them in completely different persona. And that persona of theirs can actually feel, but you need to get them in that energy where they feel, oh, here I feel it more. So I think
yeah,
it's like turning on your intuition, as you said, and seeing with this
yeah,
specific person what is the right trigger
yeah,
to ask. Is it indeed a metaphorical weather or anything similar? Is it getting them in a different energetic field where you can bring another aspect of them that feels, or an ally that will help them to do that? Or once again, retraining the mind that I am loved and it's safe to feel.
I was going to speak to that safety because you were doing this with your hands. For those of you who are listening and not able to see the video, this kind of reminded me of the space you create as a coach for people. So they may have grown up, and even in their work environment, it's not safe to show emotions or share emotions. So part of what you do is actually create this safe space and invite them. And it may be the first time they've actually been invited to express emotions. So it's new territory for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Now, I know we want to talk a little bit about manifestation because it's another one of your passions, and we're coming closer to the end, and I want to make sure we have time for that. But I just wanted to honor that my experience has taught me, and I'm sure that you resonate with this, that if somebody has a lot of repressed emotions or they're feeling hijacked by a lot of emotions, it's very difficult for them to dream or visualize or even manifest. So it feels like it's really important to do this work first, and it frees up space in them,
Absolutely.
and it brings new insights. It clarifies. It's almost like it cleans the glass on their
Yeah.
compass, because when there are emotions that are not expressed and felt, it clouds your vision.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
this is like first A and then B, and when they're ready, B. Let's go to B, which is like manifesting and creating your reality. And just tell us some of your magic
And I
around that.
just want to like a little bit close that chapter with the funny something that just came to my head. It's a bit of comical, element from Friends, and I know you watched Friends quite a few times,
Yes,
and probably many listeners know Friends as well, the sitcom. And there is one element where Bruce Willis comes in that sitcom, and so he's this tough guy who has been logical all his life.
I remember
And
this one.
then
Yeah.
at some point, Rachel says, "Well, you must feel somewhere something." And I mean, she sits with him enough to correct him at some point, and at some point he just starts to cry, and he just
Yeah.
cries for days, and pretty much
It like opens a floodgate of emotions.
and he doesn't know how to close that. So I guess what I'm saying is,
Unfortunately, Irina, it's not the best message to the public if we compare it to the movie, because it makes he comes off as, in her eyes, kind of less attractive when he does
well,
that.
yes, but look, I think my message here is you can do it with the coach, right? It's better to do it with the coach than the person you're dating. Do all that you need to do with the coach and then go ahead and date. So that's an invite, actually.
Absolutely.
The coach will hold that space for you.
Yes. And the coach won't judge you like like the woman or the man who just met
Yeah,
you.
exactly, exactly. So I guess that was more. No, I was meaning in more that direction.
I love that you brought that, because I think in the last time we talked, I talked about how Friends is great therapy. If you're ever in a sad mood or in a
Yeah,
bad mood,
yeah,
pop on Friends and it will shift your mood. And that.
absolutely.
So one more little thing before we go into like a quick sort of plug for and an inspiration for manifesting, creating your reality. And maybe we can do another podcast interview where we just talk about this, because it, gosh, we could talk for hours about this. Like, this is at the heart of the work we do. But what I wanted to say one more thing, since we brought up watching Friends, is that I know that here's another awareness piece for listeners who are at different levels of being ready to start tackling um, being more comfortable with working with your own emotions and others is notice what you do to numb. Notice what you do to avoid. I think that is, shine a light on those things, that when you start feeling something, do you go eat? Do you go shopping? Do you smoke a joint? Do you have a glass of wine?
Yeah.
What are the things that you do instead of feeling? And that's a good place to start, is just start bringing awareness to what are my patterns in terms of emotional
Yeah,
avoidance.
absolutely, absolutely. And also, this is the habit loops we talked about, right? I think our mind consists of infinite habit loops, how we operate. And as becoming conscious beings, our job is to retrain our responses and to find the best responses and to find the solutions that help us to actually enjoy more or to feel more or to accept more and to love ourselves more and just be more compassionate. And the awareness that you mentioned, right? Just be aware, just be observer of your own self, of your own behaviors is the like first 50% of the job. That, oh,
Yeah,
this is what I do.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And learn to be
I think
compassionate with me. Yeah.
and there's so much science, as you know. I mean, we didn't say at the beginning, but you've got your PhD. You are a smart woman, and we know there's science behind this. And 50 years ago we didn't have that, but we know the neuroplasticity of the brain
Yeah.
now. We know about neural
Yeah.
pathways. We know that all you need to do is make these choices on a regular basis, and we create neural pathways. And this is also very connected to manifesting and visualizing. And I don't know what you think, Irina, but I would like to invite you right now. I'm putting you on the spot, to doing a second interview where we just talk about manifesting and creating our reality, because it deserves its own space. What do you
Yeah,
think?
let's go for it. Let's go for it. Let's do it. Yes.
So that we can kind of leave this, close this chapter on emotional mastery and open up a new one in another interview. I have so much to say, and I know you do too, because this is your area of
Well, I
expertise.
can talk endlessly about this topic, but maybe before I close the chapter, for those who will be only listening to
Yes.
emotional mastery, I would like to offer that tip that whenever a stressful situation comes in, and this actually holds true for both emotional mastery and manifestation. There's such a thin, fine line between them, but I just want to make sure that I mention it here as well. Jump into reality where it's already resolved, whatever the situation is. And this trick that I use every single day has created so much peace and harmony in my life, because as soon as I feel tension in whatever way, doesn't matter if it's in my parenting journey, a private life journey, career journey, uh, dealing with tough clients, or whatever situation it is, when I feel that, okay, this a little bit, you know, gray energy, I feel like, oh, there's something strange and tension and this, I immediately, I'm telling my mind, show me the resolved feeling, the situation. And then I stay in that feeling for a while where I feel, oh, now it's taken the default. Now I feel that that's reality now. So it's in my head, the way I call this technique, just bringing future to now, emotion.
Yes.
And I just
Yes. I love it.
be peaceful.
Yeah, so we can talk about this in a future interview, because I worked for many years with a guru from Canada who believed we have to create our reality from the future. So I learned something called the Merlin method, and it's all about creating the now from the
Oh,
future.
okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard about that method. Yeah,
I didn't know it's
and
called like this, but this I've been using it daily and it does magic in my life. So maybe that's why Merlin, now I understand why it's called.
Merlin method. Yeah, and it works. And in organizations, people could sort of, the first time they hear about it, it's very outside their comfort zone. But when they actually experience it, it is a game
Yeah.
changer. And the other thing is, it's very popular right now. This is a little bit more freaky, but quantum jumping. If you get online and study quantum jumping, what you just described felt a little bit like quantum jumping to
I've
me.
studied that, I've done that. And to be honest, it is quantum jumping teaches it in a more technical manner,
Yeah,
which you can just simplify and say, just find that reality which is resolved and perfect, and just bring it
Yeah,
here and just imagine. But that requires that your imagination is already running easily, which means
yeah,
you do it
exactly.
as often as possible, and then it just can come within seconds.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So to close with our water and wave metaphor, we often say that when you repress emotions day in and day out, it's like holding beach balls under the water. If you're holding too many beach balls under the water, it requires so much energy and focus. You don't have the energy and the space to manifest a different reality. But if you let those balls go,
Exactly.
like you said,
Exactly.
acceptance, surrender, feel it, then suddenly what I'm listening with what you're describing, you're able to create your own waves,
Absolutely.
positive waves.
Absolutely.
So rather than to be thrown about by waves, you suddenly become the creator of
We
positive
create
waves.
with the ocean together, that for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to call this episode something. There's got to be waves in the name. A major theme. So Irina, I look forward. I know that listeners, when they hear this, they're going to want the next. They're going to want the next episode. So we'll put something on the calendar after we close this, but I just want to say thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you for the work you're doing out there in the world, and being an example of a mother and a game changer and a thought leader in your part of the world.
Thank you. It's really my huge pleasure. I feel it's my soul mission and I love it. I love it. So, yeah, I want to help and assist in this journey as many as possibly I can. So, thank you so much for inviting me. And yeah, I'm looking forward to our next episode.
Yes, yeah, me too, absolutely. And is there any like final message you want to uh, put out to the listeners? Um, that I guess a couple of things. One, any books you recommend? Two, if you had, this is one of the things that I'll ask. If you had a billboard with like the most important message you have around emotions, what would you put on that billboard?
For me, it would be love yourself. Love yourself. It begins from self love. Everything, I feel a human represents a microcosm, a universe itself. And when we realize how our own universe, how magical, amazing, just, I don't know, like, wow. For me, it's just wow. Just looking at the universe, realizing this how we are ourselves, and realizing you hold that, your spirit holds that. How can you not love it, no matter how it looks and how it feels? And just becoming your own best friend, best parent, best everything, and loving it is, I believe, the ultimate emotional mastery. And I feel this life actually is yeah, self-love journey. Self-love journey. That's the biggest thing I think we can learn from this. And that's why I want to once again add how important it is to create within us these perfect loving parents. Uh, because from that space we can feel worthy to have the best life. So I would like to invite every listener. Maybe we can add this little meditation that I will forward you
Yeah,
to the description where they can imagine creating that. And
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
just
So yeah, we'll share the link. How do people find you, Irina? How
they
do they
find me on
get hold of you?
LinkedIn or they find me on my self mastery website, which maybe I can share with you as well, and we will share with the listeners. Yeah, that would be the. And my favorite book that was the initial book that woke me up, and I know it's very meaningful book for you as well. It's Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
Power of Now. Yes, we have that in common. Oh God, I love that. I love that it changed your life. I hope that listeners get inspired, and if you haven't read it,
Yeah,
please go and give it a try, or even better, listen to it on the audio version as he reads
yeah,
it.
exactly,
Uh,
exactly.
all right, thank you so much, and tune in, listeners, for the next episode with Irina, where we dive into manifesting and creating your reality.
Thank you. Thank you, dear Michelle.